What up, Vibers? It's your boy, Kai. Welcome to another episode of the Vibe with Kai podcast. Today, we have a very special guest, Anika Pavel, a talented writer, model, actress, and it was even a Bond girl, which is so cool, which is so exciting. She grew up in Czechoslovakia and faced many challenges, including becoming a refugee. And despite these obstacles, she rose to international fame and now shares her amazing life stories in her new book, Encounter with the Future. And in this episode, we're going to dive into her journey from childhood under the Iron Curtain to her successful careers in modeling and acting. We're going to talk about the powerful essays in her book and how she found inspiration in her experiences. And then for all of the subscribers out there, we are going to play a fun game of Would You Rather. And we're going to hear her advice on going through big life changes. So I'm excited for this episode. With that said, welcome. Hi, how are you? Welcome to
Thank
the
you.
show.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to have you. This is really, really cool. I was reading up on your story when I was prepping for everything, and I was like, oh, I'm really excited to talk to her right now. That's so cool. So I appreciate you taking your time, taking time out of your day to speak with me.
Oh, absolutely. The
Yeah.
honor's all mine.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So if you don't mind, I want to start from the beginning here. I want to start, you went from, an incredible journey from Czechoslovakia to becoming an international model actress. How did that happen and what pivotal moments stand out to you during that journey?
Well, the most pivotal moment was when the Soviet Union invaded Czechoslovakia in
Hmm.
1968, essentially making me a refugee.
Hmm.
Um, and so England very graciously allowed all Czechoslovakian citizens who were at the time in England to stay indefinitely. However, that did not mean that communist Czechoslovakia allowed the citizens live there, which presented problems later on in my life. And I came as an au pair, had to learn to speak English, and that was a sobering experience
I'm sure. Yeah.
in more ways than one. As
Hmm.
I write in my book, the lady I was working for was a wonderful person, loved her, and she was very kind. But what I didn't know that she was actually doing illegal abortions. And then she
Mm-hmm.
went to prison, which made me a refugee kind of a second time because
Yeah.
with Russians there, I still had kind of a home with her. She was like my second mother. And then when she went to prison, I was on the street again. And
Hmm.
so,
Right.
so then
Right.
I went to work in a solicitor's office who represented her. And it was at that time I lived in YWCA, and it was at that time that I was prompted to enter a competition to become an international model, which I was lucky enough to be one of the 10 girls selected.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's how I first became a model. But it was still a very bumpy road before I made my first commercial because I had to have a steady income. I had nobody in England. I was the only person in England. I didn't know anybody. The only person I really knew was in prison. So I had to find a jobs. And so I worked as a waitress. I worked in a shop as a cashier. I had a number of jobs. Then I finally went and did a job as a permanent model, which in a fashion house is where we would model clothes for places like Selfridges or Harrods.
Yeah.
And then in a free time, we would be selling clothes to a smaller boutiques. And this, of course, was early 70s London. So it was very
Yeah.
exciting. There were movie stars everywhere, pop stars
Yeah.
popping up on Carnaby Street. And
Yeah.
so, it was exciting. It was sometimes frightening, but you do what you have to do. And eventually, little by little, my career got into making commercials and then stepping into a TV shows. I worked on a Frankie Howard show in a TV at the BBC, I think it was, or ABC. And then I worked with two Ronnies. And, little by little, I started to do little movies. And of course, the biggest step was being in a James Bond movie with Roger
Right.
Moore, who was a wonderful, wonderful person. And I met him many, many years later in New York City when there was a 50 years anniversary of the James Bond. And he was wonderful. He was always
Oh.
very wonderful person and very kind to an unknown. And, you know, my accent was at once hindrance, but also a plus. Every time I opened my mouth, even the most famous person would come and say, "Where you come from?" And then, of course,
Oh.
Czechoslovakia at the
Yeah.
time, you know, there was a big recognition, just like now we have a Ukraine. Like if you say you are from Ukraine, everybody would want to know all the details. At the
Yeah.
time, especially in Europe, being from Czechoslovakia, everyone immediately saw the tanks in Prague. And that in some ways, you know, deservedly or not, opened a few doors for me.
That's so exciting. It's such an incredible journey. And I'm curious, as you were going through these moments, especially, going from being a refugee to all of these things that were happening that you just explained, were you ever just like frightened and just scared? Like, did you ever think that there's no way I can, make it through this? Like, what was your mindset as you were going through this journey?
You know, my mindset was, I was never really so much worried about me.
Mm,
I was always worried about my family. My
mm-hmm,
mother was battling cancer. I had two brothers who were at college. And there
mm-hmm,
was always that gigantic threat that if you don't come back home, your family will be punished. And if
mm-hmm.
I do come back, what happens to me? Are they going to put me to prison? How am I going to prove that I'm not Western?
Right.
And so that was always hanging over my head. And, it was solved, if you read in a book by a very
Mm-hmm.
kind young man, and for whom I'm grateful to till this day. And, but that was really the hardest thing because it was like you never knew what would happen there. You don't know. And then this kind of a fear always popped up. Like, for example, when I got married, for real, I wanted to have a wedding like every other girl. But
Yeah.
the communists didn't let my mother out. They only let
Yeah.
they said one person, no, my brothers, neither was my brothers, and neither my mother, so only my father. So I eloped. I thought,
Yeah.
if I'm going to be lonely, I might as well go.
Oh,
And I was
yeah.
actually making a movie and they tried to keep my honeymoon short, but you know, that
Yeah.
I think haunted me really until Czechoslovakia became independent,
Mhm. Mhm.
because that fear was always there. I
Right.
mean, when I first came home, I was told, you are being followed. So
Mm.
anywhere I
Mhm.
went, so be careful, don't go and visit this person who is a persona non grata. And this is what people don't realize how hard it is to live under such an oppression.
Yeah, yeah. And so you wrote you have a new book that's coming out, Encounter with the Future. Um I can understand why you wrote something like this to document this entire journey and to let people know the story and all of that, which is fascinating. What are you hoping that people get out of it, right? So like as people are reading through this really amazing work of art, what are you hoping that people get out of it when they finish reading that final page?
I would like people to realize that when you think something is worth fighting for, you don't give up
Mm,
and you go on. And sometimes you have to just put yourself second, but sometimes you have to say, no, I have to put myself first because if I perish, everything else perish. And you
hmm.
have to fight for that.
Yeah.
And it's, I always like to say I dance to my own tune
Yeah.
because you have to. If
Yeah.
you are alone and your survival depends on you, then you dance to your own tune. You're the only
Hmm.
boss, but you're also same person you are answering to.
Yeah.
So it's double-edged sword, but it's worth it
Right,
because
right.
you strengths. And I think it also gave me a vision about people doing the right thing. It's
Hmm.
worth doing the right thing.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. There's obviously in the year 2024, there's so much history that is clearly happening all over the world. No matter where you go, there's just some really interesting, unique, scary things that are happening. And obviously for you, you got to experience this when you were young as well. I know that there are people nowadays that are experiencing similar situations in their young age. How much does the things happening around you shape your identity? So like for the people that are maybe concerned about the things that are happening around them right now, is it okay that that is what's shaping their identity moving forward? Did that play a big role for you as well growing up?
Well, I do think that our surroundings will shape us, shape
Mm-hmm.
our view, but we should always answer our call at the
Mm-hmm.
same time,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
and not to take the easy way out.
Right.
And for me, also, what's going on now, I'm amazed how much history repeats itself.
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
looking at Ukraine, especially, of
Mm-hmm.
course, and I'm thinking, is it really happening again?
Mm-hmm.
And it's sad.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to fight for what we think is right,
Right.
and not to say, well, it's not happening to me. I always helped out people, even when it wasn't about me. If
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't for my family, people used to say, well, why are you doing that? And I would say, why not? You never know how people will develop. And it doesn't have to be for my benefit.
Right.
We all live on the same planet. We all have to help each other. And we just have to know what is right and what is wrong.
Right. If there might be people listening right now that are scared, that are, in situations that you've been through before, that you've witnessed before, they might be listening right now and they're just trying to cling on to any piece of hope that they can. If they're listening right now, what would you say to them?
I would say to them, hang in there and keep fighting. Tomorrow truly is another day, and you never know what can happen from one day to another.
Hmm.
I've been in a situation where I was so frightened. I was followed by a car in the middle of the night, and I had to run in, and I thought I was sure I was going to die.
Yeah.
But I made it. Who would have thought I could get that key in? I made it.
Right.
And the next day, you just think, okay, so now I have to do something about it. So when the chips are really down, we need to look around and say, how do I get out of this?
Hmm.
And look around and don't be afraid to ask for help. If there's someone to help you, they don't know unless you ask.
Hmm.
You know, the
Yeah.
the question you don't ask cannot get answered. And so you have to go and help.
Hmm.
People, I find that people invariably were extremely helpful, and they want to help. I think genuinely most of us in our nature are helpful people. That's why we have
Hmm.
nurses, doctors, soldiers. And I think that people who often fall down into a really dark place, they feel that there's no one there to help. They have to look
Hmm.
up, and there's always a light,
Yeah.
and reach for it.
I
Never
love
give
those
up.
words. I love those words because like no matter where you are in the world, like that kind of ideology just resonates no matter where you are, no matter what country you're in, no matter what situation you're in. Like that kind of stuff is so important. And I'm glad that you're spreading that knowledge because I know that people need to hear it. And in this book, I mean, there's a lot of really impactful essays that people can read through. Is there any one specific essay that stands out to you that that probably had the most impact on your life?
Well, there are kind of two. The
Hmm.
one is where I write about my brother who worked for the BBC, and he was hit by KGB,
Hmm.
and how he refused. That was a time where I doubted whether he should go back there and risk his life. And that's what he said to me. That's exactly what they want. And you can't give up to oppressor.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one was, the title of the book is, it was a lesson of my father, who was, as a child, Czechoslovakia is people don't know, it's a tiny country, but it's a very kind of a new republic.
Mm-hmm.
It's now split again, but for 1,000 years it was occupied by the Austro-Hungarian empires.
Mm-hmm.
And so he held in his heart this hate, not maybe hate, but his maybe fear and his dislike of the Hungarians. And ultimately, it was Hungarian who helped him when he was down. And so he kind of taught me, don't hold on grudges. Always be able to forgive, because even people who make the worst mistakes, maybe, and especially do not carry them from one to another, because that's a problem. Maybe that person is bad, but that person's son or a grandson or grandchild, they may not agree, and we have to open our eyes always to the person that we are dealing with, and don't go necessarily about a history. I know we have to learn from history, but there is that fine line, that where do we take the history too far, that we become fearful to look at people for who they are as opposed to what their ancestor did. That doesn't mean we don't learn from it.
Right.
So I think that was what made an impression on me, my father's view of at his age to change about how to look at people.
Right. One of the really cool things that that people do now, especially nowadays, and you got to go through this, is transition from one country to another country, which is not necessarily the easiest thing to do, no matter what situation. Even if you have everything going your way, it's not the easiest thing to do. But there are a lot of people out there that have been making the transition from living in one country, maybe they grew up in that country, to moving to a brand new country and learning that mindset and the people there. What would you say to people that are making that transition? What piece of advice would you give to people that are moving into a new country?
I would say to them, open your eyes and just learn. Learn about what you don't know and accept it. And I had to do it several times, obviously. The hardest, of course, was England, because I didn't speak the language. So first I had to speak the language, and I had to learn to drink English tea. But other than that, then I went to Hong Kong, and that was a whole new country.
Yeah.
And I just feel that people should look at their moves from one country to another, not only as a refuge, but also as a learning experience. And what you can bring from your country of where you come in from and give to this country, which is what makes America such an amazing place. Because for centuries, every immigrant brought something new.
Yes.
And that's what makes us special. I am now American. And so, despite of my accent, I feel I'm American.
Yes.
And I don't get offended when people say, where are you from? Well, everyone comes from somewhere,
Right.
whether it's Michigan or Prague, doesn't matter. You come from somewhere. And I think that's what people, rather than be afraid of a change, embrace it.
I love that, because you're right. I mean, the United States is such a beautiful mix of so many things, so many nationalities, so many religions, so many dialects, so many language, like all of these things. It's such a beautiful thing, and I sometimes I get confused when people are upset or angry about that. I'm like, that's such a beautiful thing. You get to learn so much from so many different people.
Exactly. I think we get into trouble when it's always troublesome when one wants to dominate the other.
Yes.
Like Russia wants to be against Soviet Union. No,
Right.
there were 15 countries with an individual character and individual languages,
Yeah.
and America has so many races, so many the religious, so many
Mhm.
characters, and that's what it is. And so many, it's such a mixing pot.
Yeah,
And
yeah, and it's exciting to me. Like I think it's great, to know that no matter where you go, whether it's up the street or across the country, you're just going to meet somebody so unique, and they all have different stories, and like that's just so exciting for me. And one of the really cool things, like being a content creator on Instagram and TikTok and all these platforms, I've gotten to meet so many really great people. And a lot of them are models. A lot of them, model in today's world. So I know that there's a lot of models that listen to this podcast, that watch this podcast and things like that. And they might even know, who you are. And they're like, wait, oh my gosh, yeah, kind of thing. So for all of the models that are watching or listening right now, what would you say to them as they continue their modeling career?
be proud of what you did
Yeah,
and how
yeah,
you did it.
yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's actually what I have struggled with the most. I have, as I say in my book, I have a kind of disclaimer. I never thought of myself as famous. And when people would say, you've been on all these magazine covers and all of these commercials. I mean, I did over 100 TV commercials, and yet I always had a difficult time to accept my success.
Mhm.
I'm still struggling with it now.
Yeah.
Some people can deal with it easier. I certainly didn't, and still don't. It's still, like when you do my introduction, I'm thinking, really?
Is it like any sort of like imposter syndrome in a way? You're like, wait, me? Really?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, are you talking about me? Yeah.
Yeah.
That might be also, I grew up with two older brothers, and they
Right, right.
they always showed me what reality is.
Right. They always kept you humble, right? They're just
kept
always
me
like, yes.
kept me humble, yes.
Yes.
But yeah, I
Yeah.
guess I want all of the models or writers, and also you don't have to be just a model or an actress or whatever. I was a fundraiser. I I wrote short stories. I now also wrote a fiction. You can be
Yeah.
whatever you want to be, and your face should not define you. Whether
Hmm.
you are a model or whether you are not, doesn't matter. What's
Yeah.
between the 2 years.
Yeah, yeah. You alluded to this before, and I wanted to ask you about it. So you got to you're one of the very few individuals that can say that you're a Bond girl, which is such a really distinct honor. Do you continue to watch the Bond movies? Like, do you
Yeah,
continue to
I mean,
watch
I'm a
them?
fan,
Yeah.
obviously. Um, I am fan. It's a great fun, and
Yeah,
it was very exciting,
yeah,
and and the people are so nice,
yeah.
you know, and
Hmm.
it does amaze me how even now when people if they find I was in James Bond, they go like, "Ooh, really?" And I said, "Well, actually, I did 100 commercials. Did you see
Yeah,
one of
you're like I did other things too.
everything tells a James Bond,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
it's a great. Everybody always is very nice,
Mhm.
and it's exciting how they keep up with the modern times with the James Bond. If you look at Doctor No and you look at the latest
Mhm.
one,
Yeah.
it's very different, and that's why it's such a successful organization, because they always were able to adopt and they go forward.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah, and it
Yeah.
was it was fun. We did a lot of promotions and with Roger Moore and traveled around the country, and it was fun.
Yeah, yeah. And
One of the
you are
nicest memories.
yeah, which is good. It's good that it was like such a great experience for you, since it's ingrained in so many people's hearts, and it plays such a big role in people's love for film and entertainment in general. So the fact that you got to be a part of that, I mean, is really really
Yeah.
exciting. And I'm really curious. I mentioned this before. There's so much that is happening in the world right now. As a U.S. citizen now, how are you feeling? Like, there's so much that's happening right now, like in this country, and a lot of people are like, kind of thing. How do you feel right now as we head into the second half of 2024?
I feel a little bit more hopeful right now.
Yes, same, same.
I'm glad we didn't have this podcast 2 weeks ago. Um,
Yes.
I might have been smiling a bit less.
Yeah, same.
I do feel hopeful, and I don't, without getting political, I just would say one sentence: "Been there, done that. We don't want to go there again."
I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. Absolutely, absolutely.
Make it what you,
Yes,
yeah,
I love everything that you. I love that you're telling this story. That you're telling your story, because I know for a fact that there are going to be people out there that read this book, that see this podcast, that read more about you, that are going to get something really good out of it. That's going to maybe even help them, continue to push forward in their life, or maybe help their journey feel more validated, whatever it may be. So I love that you have the courage to just tell the story, because what you went through, it wasn't easy,
yeah.
and you mentioned before, I mean, there were times that you didn't even know if you were going to make it out of the situation alive. And yet here you are. Here we are. Here we are telling our story,
All those
it's,
years later,
yeah, and it's such a beautiful thing, and I wanted to uh have you, if you could, just give some words of wisdom for our audience as they navigate their professional, and personal life, right now. There's a lot of people. I get a lot of DMs, I get a lot of emails and messages from people that are just like, I don't know what's next for me. I don't know, I can barely feed my family right now, but I'm, pushing through. There's a lot of people that are just scared, from a personal standpoint about their life. If you don't mind, could you give them some words of wisdom, that could maybe help them make it to tomorrow?
I just would say, don't give up hope, work hard, and believe that things will get better. And always show kindness for those who are even worse off than you. Because I really find that being able to be kind to somebody else truly, truly helps the person. Often I feel the giver gets more pleasure than the person who is receiving. And that always sustained me. Um, Even when I didn't have anything, I always tried to help out and give out, and I felt good about it. And I have to tell you a story. I have a friend
Yeah.
who really, really struggled financially. And by this time, I was better off than she was. And I was able to give her, it was Christmas coming, and I gave her $100. I said, go and buy yourself something. We went out, and as we were walking down the street, there was a homeless person, and she gave him $20. And I looked at her and I said, what are you doing? And she said, he needs it more than I do.
Mm.
And it always stayed with me. And I always felt there's always somebody who needs your help. And to me, being needed is more important than anything else in the world. Because once you are not needed, it's sad.
Hmm. It really, yeah. Those right here, you're hitting my heartstrings today. You're hitting my heartstrings today. I love it. And for those of you that are listening or watching right now, that are like, wait, I want to read this book, I want to learn more, I am including in the description of this podcast a link, to her website, and a link to Encounter with the Future. That way you can go and just read more about this incredible journey. um, I feel so honored that I got to speak with you today. Like, I have imposter syndrome now. I just feel so honored, to speak with you and learn from you. And I would love to have you back, again at some point in the future to, just, talk even
Absolutely.
more. You can't get rid of me just yet. You're stuck
Oh,
with me
yeah. No,
now.
no, no.
I love it. So yeah, if you're listening or watching right now, all of the information is going to be in the description of this podcast. And again, if you are a subscriber, you're going to get even more fun video podcast stuff in the subscriber areas of TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. So make sure you go subscribe so you can see us continue our conversation here and have a little fun. So with that said, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for spending your time with me today. I really, really do
It was
appreciate it.
my honor.
Honestly, really, thank you so much. And to everybody that's watching and that's listening right now, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for listening. As always, much love, good vibes, and I will talk to you later. Bye.